What's up, guys? Koma here, and today we'll be covering a little bit about homestead design. So, right off the bat, I want to say that homestead design is something that you will not just instantly probably click in your mind. There are ways that you're going to go through it and really just trial and error and figure out what works, what doesn't, what you vibe with, what you don't vibe with. Um, Depending on, of course, whoever you're rooming with, whether or not it's one person building, aka you, or it's two people building, aka you and another roommate, or however many people building, you'll have plenty of ideas to bounce off one another. So if you are rooming with somebody, then I would highly recommend talking to them pretty in depthly about what you guys are overall, wanting to build. For instance, I kind of don't actually do a whole lot of my building in my homestead. It's actually built by one of my roommates. But what happens is when they build a structure, I usually go through and I completely readjust walls, line up certain things, and essentially I go with the vibe that they're going for because I essentially trust them with that. Um, when it comes down to just overall finding ideas, you could either go check some out of the other homesteads that I will actually be showcasing some here in this video here in a moment, but I do want to go into kind of another thing that you could realistically find some nice ideas with. And that would overall be images and references. So one of the best places I think you could really find this at is probably Pinterest. Pinterest is one that is pretty much used also by Eda, which if you guys don't remember my previous video or completely missed it, it'll be somewhere in the description and maybe up in the corner. It should pop up or something. Um, but Eda posted a message in the Discord essentially showcasing uh how he made the building that I showcased in the last video, showing off his building, which it's very tight, compact, but very detailed. Essentially, he found a reference image of a very similar house. Don't know who the original image is designed by, but essentially he completely recreated it within the homestead, and I do believe that would be something that he found on Pinterest. So what you could essentially just do is if you want a castle vibe, you can search up castle and you will get a bunch of images, essentially showing a bunch of castles. You can get some concept art. There are some garden areas. If you want interior, so you can do interior, for instance. So if you're trying to make the inside of the house something unique, you get some stuff here. Another cool thing you could probably do is brutalist architecture. Or is it brutalism? Yes. So brutalism is kind of this almost like concrete feel architecture. It's almost sort of like liminal space, but this is another great example of just something very unique that you could realistically do. If this interests you, then you can definitely go find some images on Pinterest. There's a lot of images of brutalist architecture, and a lot of them are actually really cool. It's one of my favorite architecture that you can actually find um, for designs. It's kind of modern-y, and that's another thing you can also search up here. So you could do like modern garden, I suppose you could, and everything come up will kind of be this like nice, pristine. You could use the white walls pretty well for something like this kind of stuff. But there's plenty of ideas that you could really work off of here. And it's really just trying to figure out what you just want to really make when it comes down to a lot of this. So for the remainder of the video, I will be swapping over to post commentary for this because I will be showing off some homesteads. Primarily to showcase what people not only are making with full credit, there will be user IDs and names attached, but all these homesteads are actually publicly listed from the homestead design in the official Blue Protocol Star Residence Discord. So you can come over and you can vote for your favorite homesteads over here that are publicly accessible. You can post your own if you have homesteads that are actively being worked on and you want to showcase them off and you think they are well enough to show off. And whoever you vote for will actually get some pretty decent rewards out of it as well. So feel free to come over and vote on ideas. But everything you see here will be essentially listed, except the ones that I don't have listed user IDs. Everything should be showcased. So for instance, this one from Human, I don't think I've seen their user ID anywhere, but you can essentially see their photos here, which it does look good. I really wish I had footage. Unfortunately, there was no user ID. So, oh yeah, the house is also exclusive to friends. All the ones that I will be showcasing are publicly accessible. So even if you're not a friend of the creator in game, you can still go access the homestead. So go over, hop over. You can vote. Realistically, vote for whoever you want. I have pretty much posted votes in areas besides my own, essentially, of all the other very well-known and good, homesteads that I genuinely enjoy. So with that said, I'm going to hop over and we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the homesteads you guys will see. All right, so for the sake of keeping everything kind of where I am, I'm going to go ahead and start off with my homestead. So the thing with our homestead is that, again, I don't build a majority of the buildings. That is one of my roommates, Shez. They go ahead and build everything primarily for me. And everything, I think the thing that we mainly aim for is primarily still have everything be functional. So you can still walk around the space and, having almost a cozy vibe outside. So you'll notice now we have a bar for a hangout area. On top, there's actually a greenhouse that's actively in the works, where Shez does all the flowering. We have a bunch of little garden areas, which we really don't have grass for, but we try to make do with plants. And then we have like a little guest house that also does have a little bit of a kitchen, which is also actively in the works. It's where we actually have our furniture crafting bench outside there. And it has a few bedrooms as well. But when you go inside, it's more of a modern space. So it's kind of mimicking that brutalist architecture that I was talking about earlier, but also still having that modern touch with the white and a lot of, gardening pieces, so it still feels a little lively in there without, feeling a little too dull. But all in all, our space is still completely functionable. You can walk around it, and it feels like you could at least, live there, right? Like, it doesn't feel too cramped, and you can still maneuver just fine. All right. So next up is Snowie's place. So Snowie's place, I don't think Snowiie actually gave a good description on essentially what else their place is besides a chill place after a long dungeon farm or long night raid or whatever. And yeah, that's essentially what it is. I kind of get the vibe of it almost feels like a resort of sorts or like your own private getaway kind of area. But there's plenty of space just to kind of move around in. The spatial structure is very nice. It almost kind of gives me a modern vibe, but it still has a uh, almost kind of just wooden finish to it. There's a lot of wooden steps, but there's still some of that concrete usage here. But when it comes down to the interior, that is a whole different case, which we'll see here in a moment. But the one thing I noticed about Snowie's building style, which I don't know how many people they have building when it comes down to Snowie's place, but it's a lot of finer details when you're walking around. I don't know how close they are in terms of budget inside, but I know outside, I believe Snowiie has hit the budget. But going inside, I do know that the inside is somewhat of a work in progress. But the interior is more of a cozy space. It has its own little bar, and it almost feels like another hangout spot, give or take. But I do love the very massive attention to details, with all the bottles on the shelves. You have plenty of things on tables. You have the giant thing on the wall. Um, Everything about this homestead is really what I kind of vibe with as well. So it's very impressive to see here. Have all the beds lined up, everything of that sorts. So that is just very phenomenal to kind of look at. So yeah, I will go ahead and let this footage continue playing on, and I will hop over to the next homestead afterwards. Okay, so next up is Kulito's place. This place is kind of more of a modern style, like, courtyard area. Is really the only way I would say it. It's kind of like an outdoor, almost restaurant kind of vibey. And this will make a whole lot more sense once the inside is shown, but there's a ton of space to maneuver around with. There, again, is like a bar. They have a desk for business. And there's some stages and stuff like that. And I know there's also a house, and I believe the house is actively being worked on. There's no interior with it yet, so that is something I guess they're actively working on currently. But when it comes down to the interior ships entirely different way, and it is a club. This is the only way I could really describe it. More specifically, a strip club. So I really hope anyone going here is over the age of 18. But overall, the vibe is really nice inside. The walls sell it really, really well. The lighting, everything is really, really well done. Next up is Edish. Edech. I don't know how exactly you pronounce your name, but I always say Edda. But Edda's place, I featured before in the previous video, showcasing off the little house that they have actively in front of their homestead. But now the interior of their homestead is actually done, and they have like pretty much constructed an entire concert hall within the, or I think it's an opera hall to be specific. But overall, it is a very well done. There is very good atmosphere. They even have a light shining its light down onto the piano, which, by the way, that piano is completely constructed of separate objects. There is no piano like item that is actively in the game that you can place down. So a lot of the work here is actually really impressive and good use for pretty much every object imaginable here. Everything that you see with the upper banisters are actually just countertops that are cleverly used. The little black bits on the piano are actually little um, framed image. I don't think they're images, but they're almost like little signs. And then all the interior parts of the piano are all wooden racks and stuff like that. It's just a very clever use of pretty much every object here, of course. So it was really cool to see. I'm glad this thing is finally done. I don't know if they're going to be adding to it anymore, and I don't know what they're going to be doing here, as well as the outside. Of course, the outside has the building I mentioned earlier. So yeah. All right. So next up is Laplaced Homestead. Now, I do think this is more of a kind of just cozy area. I don't think there's a specific style that is really sitting in this area. But there's a lot of verticality to this area, which is something I really was not expecting. Um, you can just kind of walk around and you can see some nice little hangout spots. And there's like a little building they have that is actually built into the far left, like rock wall, as I believe this entire outside homestead is surrounded by the rock wall. So they built this house into the rock wall. So one of the interior walls is actually just that giant rock. Kind of gives a nice like fantasy vibe to it, I think. Um, and then as you continue up, there's a few more. I believe there's some sort of stage up there as well. Granted, it's a very tiny stage. I wouldn't dance on it, you know. You might fall. And then they have like a little vertical space that has a table and I think some cushions for you to sit and eat on. A really cool vibe outside. Not really something I expected, honestly. I remember seeing screenshots and kind of expecting kind of like, you know, a cozy fantasy vibe here, but um, there's a lot more going on here. I don't know if this is still a work in progress, but some of the stuff that are near their NPCs is a bit more finer detailed. Another cool detail I noticed on these tile floors that you'll see here is that there are stars within the tile floors. Those are actually Christmas presents from the Christmas event, or that you could buy from the store, that you can actually push into the ground or into walls, and you can put the stars almost like tiles. But yeah, some really cool details that you can see here. But the big moment is whenever you actually go inside. And when you go inside, it is a very well detailed bar area with the stage and a microphone. And each hand playing the drums, which is very cool. I think the vibe here is really cool. It reminds me a lot of Kulito's a little bit. Although I like this one a bit more just because the bar is so unbelievably detailed. It's really cool to actually see how like almost like dim it is inside, but there's still this a good use of lighting. There's bottles, there is you know, you can see the menu right there on the bar table. It is just so unbelievably detailed here, and you can even see the bottles and hammers used for the taps. Like, I was very surprised whenever I walked in here and saw the taps. Such a cool use for those. But yeah, overall, such a cool vibe with this one. I dig the interior a ton. So yeah. All right, up next is Nonohara. So Nonohara actually has almost practically a castle, but it's labeled as a guild fort. Essentially, what it is in the grand scheme of things, it is kind of like a lifted foundation with a few very small houses that they're actively working on. I don't think anything here is final. There is nothing underneath the foundation. But a lot of their building in terms of their housing structure is very well done. A lot of good use of objects and a lot of foliage that is used around. You'll notice that there are steps that are actually the wooden racks, as I was talking about earlier with the phone. And this has actually changed a lot since the last time I saw it. The last time I saw it, I believe not even any of the houses had any interior pretty much at all, as well as stuff just kind of being like not necessarily a maze, but not necessarily final. They're actively, I guess, working on adjusting the stairs to where you can actually work on it. There's actually another house up the stairs as well. This house actually reminds me of something that you would see within like game development. The way that it's almost like textured, I guess, due to the lighting. Just reminds me of something like, you know, something that isn't final within a game. But they have like a little tiny balcony that is actively still being worked on, of course. They have this nice overgrown kind of like pathway area through the back. It's just a really cool vibe when it comes down to outside. Unfortunately, they haven't done anything with the interior. But there was a new addition that I was not expecting, and that is the entire school that was built up on top of the main house. I found this just because I was walking up and noticed that there used to be a tower that was completely gone, and now it's been replaced with this pathway up to the school. It's not too crazily detailed, but I thought the vibe up here was really cool. It's very dark. I don't know if that was an intentional choice they had in terms of just artistic value, because I do know they were taking screenshots in here. I've seen screenshots in the official Discord, so um, but yeah, I thought seeing this was like really cool. There were some cool things that I noticed with it as well, such as these arches. If you wallpaper them, the arches will, that was my phone, actually kind of inherit the wallpaper color as well, which was something very interesting I never noticed before. So, very cool place. I have actually had the pleasure of actually being toured around by the owner of this. So that was really cool. Um, yeah, and also the gazebo. I don't think I really need to talk about the gazebo. It looks just good in of its own. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Enjoy the footage. All right, so next up is Luneil's place. Luneil's is a very interesting one. Not one that I really expected, primarily because there is actually a whole graveyard outside. Now, I don't know if there's a specific symbolism of the graveyard, but I just really do kind of like this vibe. Um, it almost does sort of feel like a monument to the lost of a way. They even have this one way in the back that has, you know, specifically is isolated. They have an area, I guess, for active funerals, I guess. Which at first I was kind of thinking like, oh, this is really interesting. And then when I go into the extra spare building, which I guess they're actively working on since there's no roof, it kind of turned grim because there was actually like coffins in there, which I was not expecting. Um, so I don't entirely understand the reasoning behind it, but I do really enjoy the vibe. The lighting, especially when at night, because it does give that kind of almost that dark, grim vibes to it. Meanwhile, going into their interior, it's almost like an interior greenhouse of sorts. Uh, you have like the entire back walls and stuff all set up with essentially just glass almost. It's very bright and vibrant. There are areas for people to sit down and, you know, just eat and kind of just vibe. They have the marble floor almost paved out with these rocky debris structures. So it looks like there's paths. There's a wooden swing, which I guess you could take screenshots on. There's still a bunch of flowers and just overall really cool little vibe here. It just goes to show that realistically, you don't really need to follow the modern brutalist fantasy vibes. You could realistically do whatever you want here. So I thought this was really cool. So moving on to Ahnia, I believe is how you pronounce their username. I believe this one is more of a modern exterior. I couldn't really feel what was exactly it was supposed to be, but the building outside gave me some more modern vibe. But it still does give me some cozy areas here and there. I don't know why they have snowmans and stuff out, but then again, we really haven't taken down our Christmas decorations, and this guy actively has a hatchet in his head. So that probably says enough of what I really need to know about what exactly is going on outside. But there's some good details out here. You got the own little garden area. I went ahead and ran over to this modern house. And overall, there's not much detail, so I would still assume this is still largely a work in progress. Um, and you can kind of see some details that they're putting in. It definitely is kind of sort of a modern space to it. Lots of windows, very, you know, that kind of modern white design to it. They have like this bedroom area when you go upstairs that has some nice gardening, like side wall. And then this nice little room here, which I can only really describe as sort of like a reading room. It's kind of like where you want to sit there and kind of read a book. And then they have this outside balcony, which is very nice. I do like how the bushes are lined up, and they just kind of definitely a vibe out there. When it comes down to the interior, it's almost like yet another kind of like cafe or bar style vibe to it. Um, this one is not as detailed, and again, I don't know how much, they're actually want to put into this. I don't know if it's sorry, I'm yawning. I'm doing this video very late at night, but um, I don't know if this is kind of their final version of it. I feel like it wouldn't be. I feel like there's probably still a lot of stuff they're probably going to be doing with it. Um, but all in all, I do think this is kind of has a cozy vibe. I don't remember the upstairs, but I recorded the upstairs. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. So up next is DaiK, I believe is how you pronounce their name. I could be completely wrong about that. It might just be DaiK. I don't know. I apologize. But overall, this space, I do kind of get a modern vibe to it. But it almost feels like seaside kind of sorts with the towers that they have going on in the like spawn area. I really don't know how to really like describe this area, but it definitely is kind of it feels like almost like a resort sorta as well. But as well as there's just kind of some, you know, more personal areas, I believe, in this area in the outside. I feel like they have like a little restaurant up top, which is the only way I could really describe that. I noticed they have this blue orb in the center of their garden, which is also really cool. Um, there's a lot of verticality outside, which is what I was surprised about. Although it has a lot of verticality, it's not very detailed the higher you go up. My phone keeps going off. Why? That would be the second time this video, which is really annoying. But I'll keep it in because can't be bothered to edit it. um, so yeah, I don't know. It's hard to describe the exterior. Besides just overall kind of being like almost like a seaside resort. Which I guess checks out with the overall vibe of not only the island and the beach, all the way down, further down, behind the house. Now, if I remember correctly, the interior took me some time to load. Now, I don't know if that was just because of how much stuff they have, but right off the bat, you're kind of just set into this like vibe of this. It's not modern, but it's this kind of just you're I don't know. It's hard to really describe this kind of house. I would say modern, but describing it as modern isn't necessarily correct because when I say modern in this situation, I'm talking about our current day modern housing. Something that you actively live in now is what this really reminds me of. Which overall, I do like it. There's a ton of rooms. They segmented every room off really well. I love this bathroom that they have as well. This bathroom is really cool to see, you know, the toilet designed. They have this little shower area. They have, like, even the hot and cold knobs are all just detailed. It's just really impressive to see, how actual detailed, this entire bathroom is. So, very impressed. But, yeah, I'm just going to let the footage roll with this one. I think this is definitely one of my favorites. I think that has been listed here. So All right, and I believe this will be the last one. If not, this is Latis's place. So it is completely sectioned off by rock walls, and when you pass through the curtain, you're greeted with a stage, a path, and a little bit of a garden area. I have no clue if this area is actually a work in progress. I would assume it is. It feels like there's still a little bit missing, so I would assume that they're actively still working on it. You can go inside, and it feels almost like a lodge area. Oh yeah, this piano that's right here as well. It's almost very similar to, well, I wouldn't say it's similar, but it's almost kind of a similar vibe to the way that Edda's had their keys. So probably taking some inspiration from Edda's piano there. Again, this little building you come in, it kind of feels more like a lodge or some sort of restaurant. I don't know entirely what it would be, as it's still completely a work in progress. So you'll have to see at a later date whatever this is. Um, but when it comes down to the interior, or well, I'm not moving to the interior just yet, since I'm watching this and post, um, everything. Uh, they have an entire Ferris wheel that they have designed out of, it looks like pillars and a bunch of the hanging chairs, which honestly looks really cool. It's a shame this thing doesn't move, but I've seen screenshots of the creator actually sitting in one of the chairs um, up there as well, so that is cool. And then there's just a bed up here, all the way up at the top. Not entirely sure what the bed is about. And then the rest of their NPCs are behind counters, and there's nothing else really outside. Moving on into the inside, um, I believe it was under construction. So, yeah, that is definitely something interesting. All right, and with that very long video, at least almost edited on my end, that pretty much brings everything to a ending. There have been more homesteads since I've recorded this, so what I would highly recommend people doing is, if you want to see more homestead, or you want to see these homesteads evolve over time, I would highly recommend hopping over into the official Blue Protocol Star Residence Discord and essentially go check out the Homestead Design channel. Primarily because if you're wanting to follow along, see updates and everything alongside these homesteads, you can go see them there. There's way too many for me to feature as I'm editing this, and of course, as you guys can see, it's beyond 30 minutes, which is far beyond what I expected the video to go on for. So if you want more, go over there, go check them out yourselves, and I think it's a better experience checking them out yourselves, because not only do you get to look at into the intricate details, but I don't know, you get the idea. So I appreciate everyone for watching. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys found something that at least inspired you to some degree, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Adios.